The first thing the man said wasn't thank you. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't even a question. He shut the passenger door, stared straight ahead, and said, "You shouldn't have stopped here." Then, almost casually, "You passed this exact spot 17 minutes ago." The driver's grip tightened, because he hadn't. He was certain of that. And yet, something about the way the man said it made that certainty feel weaker. According to the report, the driver had been on the road for nearly 3 hours. A late-night trip, minimal traffic, long, uninterrupted stretches of highway where the world feels distant. He didn't usually stop for strangers. In fact, he avoided it completely. But that night, he slowed down. The man wasn't waving, wasn't asking for help. He was just standing there, facing the road, as if he already knew someone would pull over. No luggage, no phone visible, no sign he had been walking. Just waiting. When the door opened, he got in immediately. No hesitation, no introduction. Just that first sentence, like he'd been continuing a conversation that hadn't happened yet. At first, the driver told himself it was nothing. Just an odd passenger, just a strange start. But behind the scenes, something dark was lurking. For the first few minutes, there was silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that makes you aware of every small sound. The movement of the steering wheel, the rhythm of the tires, your own breathing. Then the man spoke again. "You missed your turn." The driver frowned slightly. "I didn't mention a turn." The man didn't look at him. "You didn't have to." A few minutes later, "You're going to want to slow down soon." The road ahead looked straight, clear, empty. Still, the driver eased off the accelerator, and seconds later, the road curved sharply. Too sharply, the kind of bend that could have caught him off guard. The driver glanced sideways. The man hadn't reacted, hadn't even shifted his posture, just sitting there as if he'd already seen it happen. Then came the moment that stayed with him. You almost fell asleep earlier. The driver's eyes snapped forward, because that was true. There had been a moment, brief, where his focus slipped. No drifting lane, no visible mistake. Just a flicker of fatigue, something no one else could have noticed. Unless they had been there. 30 minutes into the drive, the signal dropped. No warning, no gradual fade, just gone. The driver picked up his phone, checked it, nothing. "That happens here," the man said quietly. The driver didn't respond. "You're not going to get it back for a while." That wasn't unusual. There were areas like that, dead zones. But then the man added, "You're going to take the next exit." The driver shook his head slightly. "There isn't one. There will be." They kept driving. And then, there it was. A narrow road, branching off to the right. No sign, no lights. Just an opening in the darkness. The driver slowed. He didn't remember seeing it before. Didn't remember passing anything like it. "You'll save time," the man said. Same tone, same certainty. No pressure, no urgency. Just a statement. The driver hesitated, looked ahead, looked at the road, then turned. The moment the car left the highway, the atmosphere changed. The headlights didn't stretch as far. The air felt still. Too still, and the silence was immediate. No distant engines. No passing vehicles. Nothing. Just the sound of tires, moving forward. Minutes passed, or what felt like minutes. Then the man spoke again. "You should keep your eyes on the road now." The driver didn't respond. "I mean it. Don't look at me." A longer pause. Then, quieter. "Not yet." The driver would later say, that was the moment everything shifted. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Just a slow realization that something about this situation didn't follow any logic he could explain. His hands tightened on the wheel. His breathing changed. And despite the warning, he looked. Just for a second. A quick glance to the side. The passenger seat was empty. No movement, no sound, nothing. The driver froze. Because he hadn't heard the door open. Hadn't felt the car shift. Hadn't seen anything leave. Slowly, he lifted his eyes to the rearview mirror. And that's when he saw it. The man sitting directly behind him, closer than before, leaning slightly forward, watching. Then, smiling. The driver jerked his head around. The back seat was empty. He looked forward again. The mirror showed nothing, just darkness. And then the engine cut out. The vehicle was discovered the next morning, parked at an angle just off a narrow road that didn't appear on standard maps. There were no signs of forced entry, no second set of footprints, no indication that anyone else had been there. The driver was found inside, conscious but disoriented. He insisted there had been someone with him, described the man in detail, repeated the same sequence of events over and over. Investigators searched the surrounding area. They found nothing at first, until someone checked older records, incidents connected to that stretch of highway, and eventually they found one. Years earlier, an unidentified man struck and killed along the roadside. Late at night, minimal traffic, no witnesses. The description matched exactly. Same height, same clothing, same expression. But what unsettled investigators most was something the driver said before he was released. He told them that just before help arrived, he checked the back seat one last time, carefully, slowly, to make sure no one was there, and what he noticed didn't make sense. Because the rear door, the one behind the passenger seat, was still locked from the inside, and according to the driver, he never locked it. The first time he passed the gas station, he didn't think anything of it. Just another stop along a long stretch of road, dim lights, a broken sign hanging at an angle. One car parked near the pumps, engine off, no one inside. He kept driving, and then, 20 minutes later, he passed it. Same broken sign, same car, same position. This time, he checked the clock. Only 3 minutes had passed. According to the account he gave later, the driver had been traveling alone for hours, a long-distance trip, late enough that traffic had thinned out almost completely. The road ahead stretched endlessly, uninterrupted, familiar. His GPS was active, working normally, clear directions. Estimated arrival time unchanged. Everything suggested a routine drive. Nothing unusual, no wrong turns, no missed exits. And yet, there was a growing sense, difficult to define, that something wasn't aligning. Not in an obvious way, nothing dramatic, just small details that didn't quite settle. He adjusted the radio, checked his mirrors, focused on the road, told himself it was fatigue. A long drive can distort perception, make ordinary things feel out of place. But behind the scenes, something dark was lurking. The second time he saw the gas station, he slowed down. Not enough to stop, just enough to confirm what he was seeing. The broken sign tilted to the left, the flickering light above the entrance. The same car parked at the same angle. No movement, no person, no change. He kept driving this time. More aware, more focused, waiting for something to be different. A passing vehicle, a change in scenery, anything. But the road remained the same, flat, empty, unbroken. Then it happened again, the third time. The same gas station, exactly as before. He checked the time again. 4 minutes. It had only been 4 minutes. The driver tightened his grip on the wheel, because now, it wasn't just a feeling, it was a pattern. He picked up his phone. No signal, not unusual, but this time, it felt different. He opened the GPS. The route was still active, still guiding him forward. No recalculations, no warnings, no indication that anything was wrong. But the map wasn't moving. The arrow representing his car stayed in the same position. Even as the road passed beneath him, he refreshed it. Nothing changed. He accelerated slightly, then slowed down. The speed changed. The surroundings didn't. The clock on the dashboard stopped, not frozen in a dramatic way, just not progressing. Seconds weren't passing. Minutes weren't advancing. Time had stalled. The driver exhaled slowly, tried to stay focused, tried to think clearly. Fatigue, that had to be it. Exhaustion can affect perception, create patterns that aren't there, repeat visuals, distort time. He reached for the radio again, static. Then, briefly, a voice, unclear, faint, then gone. He looked ahead, and there it was again. The gas station, the broken sign, the parked car. Long pause, but this time, the driver noticed something new. The car door was open. The driver didn't slow down this time, didn't look toward the station, didn't turn his head. He kept his eyes fixed on the road, focused, steady, determined to break the pattern. And then headlights appeared ahead. Another vehicle, approaching from the opposite direction. The first one he had seen in a long time. Relief, brief but real, until it got closer and closer and closer. The driver narrowed his eyes, because something about the vehicle felt familiar, the shape, the speed, the way it stayed perfectly centered in its lane. Then, as it passed, he saw it, the driver. It was him. Same face, same expression, same hands on the wheel, looking straight ahead, as if nothing was wrong. The moment lasted less than a second, but it was enough. The driver jerked the steering wheel. The car swerved, the engine cut, and everything went silent. The vehicle was later found on the side of the highway. Engine off, lights still on. No visible damage, no signs of a collision. The driver was located hours later, walking along the road, disoriented, unable to explain how he got there. He insisted he had only been driving for a short time, 10 minutes, maybe less. But records told a different story. According to traffic cameras, the car had been on that same stretch of road for over 6 hours, passing the same point again and again and again. Investigators reviewed the dashcam footage. At first, everything appeared normal, a continuous drive, uninterrupted, until they noticed something. At one point in the recording, another car passes in the opposite direction. Brief, almost unnoticeable, but clear enough. They paused the footage, zoomed in, and what they saw raised more questions than it answered. Because behind the wheel of that passing car was the same driver, wearing the same clothes, making the same movements, driving in the opposite direction. At the exact same time, the driver was shown the footage. He watched it in silence, didn't react, didn't speak until the very end, when he said something that was later written into the report. A single sentence, quiet, certain. The timestamp said I'd been driving for 6 hours, but I only remember 10 minutes. The call came in at 2:13 a.m. A woman, out of breath, barely able to speak. She gave a location immediately. Route 17, please, I need help. There was only one problem. Route 17 had been because from the very beginning, something about that conversation didn't follow the rules. And behind the scenes, something dark was lurking. The dispatcher on duty that night had handled hundreds of calls. Accidents, breakdowns, false alarms, nothing unfamiliar, nothing that couldn't be explained. When the line connected, the protocol was immediate. Emergency services, what is your location? The woman responded without hesitation. Route 17, near the old bridge. Please hurry. Her voice was unstable, breathing uneven, words coming too fast, then stopping abruptly. The dispatcher began logging the details, typing, listening, trying to keep the caller calm. Can you describe what's happening? There was a pause. Then, quietly, he's following me. Who is coming from the other side. The dispatcher tried to stay focused, tried to follow protocol. "Mom, I need you to listen to me carefully." No response, just breathing, uneven, closer now. Then the woman spoke again, quieter than before. "He's in the road. He's looking at me." The dispatcher swallowed. "Can you describe him?" A long silence followed. So long, it felt like the line had gone dead. Then, he looks cut off. The connection dropped, returned, dropped again, and then, one final time, it came back, clear, stable, perfectly silent, until a whisper. Not the woman's voice, something else, close to the receiver, unclear, unsteady, but present. And then, the line disconnected. The call was logged, time-stamped, archived like any other emergency report. But the location never matched any active coordinates. Search teams were unable to access Route 17. The road had been sealed for years, blocked off completely, no entry points, no active pathways. The dispatcher filed his report, included every detail, every irregularity, every moment of the call. Days later, a supervisor reviewed the recording, cross-referenced it with older archives, routine procedure, until something appeared, a match. Same call structure, same phrases, same background interference, logged under a different date, years earlier. Same time, same location, same voice. The caller had already been recorded, and according to official records, the woman associated with that file had been declared dead shortly after that original call. The final seconds of the recording were analyzed repeatedly, enhanced, isolated, played back at different speeds, trying to identify the last sound before the disconnection. Because it wasn't speech, it wasn't movement, it wasn't static, it was breathing. But it didn't match the caller, it didn't match the dispatcher, and it didn't stop when the line went dead. The last thing recorded was breathing, not hers. He only looked at the mirror for a second. That's all it took. Just a routine glance, the kind every driver makes without thinking. Road behind him, empty lane, darkness stretching out for miles. And then, someone was sitting there. Not outside, not behind the car, inside, in the back seat, perfectly still, facing forward. He didn't slam the brakes, didn't react immediately, because for a moment, his mind refused to accept what he had just seen. He told himself it was a reflection, a shadow, a trick of the light, until he looked again, and the figure was still there. And behind the scenes, something dark was lurking. The driver had been alone, that much was confirmed. Security footage from the last toll point showed a single occupant, no passengers, no stops, no interruptions. The doors had been locked from the moment he started the engine. Windows closed, no signs of tampering, a straight drive, nothing unusual. He wasn't fatigued, wasn't distracted, wasn't under the influence of anything. Just a routine journey along a quiet stretch of highway. Until that moment. That brief glance into the mirror, that changed everything. He adjusted his posture slightly, kept his eyes on the road, then slowly looked again. The back seat was empty. He exhaled, a small release of tension, enough to convince himself it had been nothing. But something about it lingered. Not fear, not yet, just uncertainty. The kind that stays in the background, waiting. He tightened his grip on the wheel, focused forward. Then, without meaning to, his eyes moved back to the mirror again. And there it was, the shape. Faint, undefined, sitting in the same position, still, watching. The driver turned his head quickly. The seat was empty, nothing behind him. No movement, no sound. He faced forward again, and in the mirror, returned, this time, closer. The driver's breathing changed, slower at first, then sharper, controlled, but strained. He kept his eyes on the road, avoided the mirror, tried to ignore it. But the presence didn't fade. It stayed, persistent, unmoving. Waiting then, he heard it, a sound, faint, almost indistinguishable from the hum of the engine, like air shifting, like someone breathing from the back seat. He froze, not physically, just enough to listen. The sound came again, closer this time. He glanced at the mirror. The figure hadn't moved. But something was different. The seat beneath it had shifted, slightly compressed, as if weight was being applied. The driver swallowed, reached for his phone with one hand, kept the other on the wheel, opened the camera, switched it to record. Without turning around, he raised it slowly, angled it toward the back seat, and tapped the screen. The recording captured something, brief, unclear, but present, a shape, a face, too close to the lens. Then static. The screen flickered, went black. The phone shut off. That's when the driver made a decision. He needed to stop, immediately. He eased off the accelerator, pressed the brakes, but the car didn't respond. Not fully, it slowed, but not enough. The road ahead stretched endlessly. Empty, silent, he pressed harder. The brakes resisted. Then, the engine cut. The headlights dimmed. The car rolled to a halt. Everything went still. No sound, no movement, just silence. The driver sat there, hands frozen on the wheel. And then, slowly, he looked up at the mirror. The figure was no longer sitting. It was leaning forward, closer than before. Close enough that details began to form. Not clear, not complete. Just enough to confirm one thing. It wasn't a reflection, and it wasn't leaving. The vehicle was recovered hours later, parked along the shoulder of the highway. No visible damage, no signs of struggle. The driver was found nearby, disoriented, unsteady, unable to fully explain what had happened. He repeated the same detail, over and over. There was someone in the back seat. Authorities reviewed nearby surveillance footage, toll cameras, traffic monitors, entry points. Every frame showed the same thing. One driver, alone, no passenger, no additional movement inside the vehicle. Nothing to support his claim until they examined the phone, the recording he had taken. The file was partially corrupted, most of it unusable. But a few frames remained, recovered, enhanced, stabilized. And in those frames, something appeared, a figure, positioned in the back seat, leaning forward, close to the driver, close enough to be reflected in the side window. The footage was shown to the driver. He watched it once, said nothing, then looked away. Because there was one detail no one had mentioned to him, one detail that hadn't been in his statement, something he hadn't seen until that moment, the reflection. Not just one face, but two. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. They told me there was no one else in the car, but the reflection in the window still shows two faces,